Hi, imagine that there is a new experimental drug and that so-called phase 1 toxicity studies in human volunteers have shown that this new drug may be toxic to the liver based on blood measurements. You can imagine that we would like to find out what's happening in the liver of the subjects treated with this new drug. Ideally, we would like to give this drug to volunteers and take a piece of their liver before and after the drug treatment. But do you think that that's doable? No, this is impossible because it's too risky and therefore not allowed. Could we do an animal experiment? Yeah, if you can justify the experiment from a scientific point of view, and if you adhere to the ethical principles and guidelines, then yes, we could conduct an animal experiment where we would sample the liver for further analyses. And this example illustrates the main advantage of studies in animals, which is that we can sample tissues that are not accessible in living humans. In addition, we can study the effect of compounds or treatments that are suspected to be harmful. For example, to find out if a certain chemical may promote cancer, we can give the chemical to mice or rats and study the development of cancer over the course of several months. We wouldn't be allowed to do that type of study in humans. Also, to study if a certain drug or nutritional compound may be protective against cancer, before we would be able to do any study in humans, we first have to show that the drug is effective in animals. And that means that we need to create a tumor in most often mice or rats and see if the drug may reduce the emergence or growth of the tumor and how it does that. Another major advantage of studies in certain animals, particularly mice, is that we can change the genetic makeup of the mice using genetic tools. For instance, we can study the role of a certain gene by deleting it in a mouse. And over the last 2 to 3 decades, these so-called knockout mice have given us a ton of information on the role of many of the 20 to 30,000 genes in our body. And by deleting certain genes, one can also create an animal equivalent of certain human genetic diseases, which is very helpful in the search for new cures for these genetic diseases. So there are certainly advantages to the use of animals, but there are also major disadvantages. First of all, animals are different from humans in many ways. And depending on what process or disease you're studying, this difference may be tiny or huge. So scientists always need to consider whether the results they obtain from animal experiments are also valid in humans. Because we're not interested in the mouse per se. No, we want to translate the results to humans. And that means that scientists should be very careful in the selection of the animal model and how the study is performed. Another major disadvantage is that many people don't like the idea of using animals for research. In a way, it's similar to some people being against the use of animals for human consumption. But even if you're not in principle against using animals in research, you will probably agree with me that any studies in animals should be subject to a serious ethical evaluation. Okay, in brief, studies in animals have certain advantages and disadvantages over human studies. The major advantage is that you can do more detailed mechanistic studies because you can sample a larger number of tissues. Moreover, you can create specific genetic models to study the role of certain genes. And animals can be subjected to certain treatments that would be difficult to do in humans. However, the major disadvantage is that animals are not humans and that the results obtained may not or only partially apply to humans.